Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to Soul Focus. I hope you had a good day. And tonight I have a special guest for you, Michelle Price. How are you going, Michelle?
Hey, hi. That music was awesome. I'm like, yeah, here we are. It was really great. Good
It's
intro.
tripped
Love
out,
it.
isn't it? Uh,
Yeah, psychedelic.
oh, yeah. It comes with the program.
Yeah.
Um, they're very limited. So it's either that or rock and roll or happy
Uh-huh.
music. And the happy music, I just can't stomach. I'm an old rock and roller.
Yeah, love it.
Um, so, Michelle, tell us about yourself.
Well, I did see in your intro there you had psychic medium and healer, and
Yep.
that's very much me. I'm a master Reiki master, so I teach Reiki, practice Reiki on a daily basis with clients, and also chronic energy healing. Not everyone's probably heard of that, but it is a little bit more sort of targeted, a bit more medically based, so quite involved. And a little bit sort of I use both really, Reiki and
Yep.
pranic, but I do both. So medium, I'm connecting to past over loved ones on a daily basis as well. So bringing through messages from the other side. But paranormal, we were just talking about off air.
Yep.
Paranormal is a big part of what I do. So I was part of a big group on the Gold Coast, and then I continue to do house clearings and things up my way now on the Sunshine Coast,
Yep.
in Queensland. So yeah, a lot of that stuff going on. But mentorship is a big one. So I do a lot of helping people to discover, develop their gifts as
Yep.
well. So yeah, only been doing it for less than 2 years. 2 years next month. I've been doing this full time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I had no choice. I got fired from work for not wearing a mask.
Yeah. During the club, I was made redundant. So there you go.
Best thing that ever happened to me.
I know. Yes. Isn't it amazing? Amazing.
Finally, I got one thing to thank the government for. It's about time, isn't it?
That's it. Gave us the push that we needed, Brooke. Yeah.
So how did you get started in spirituality?
Well, I've always been seeing dead people, I guess. Haley
Yep.
Joel Osment, I've always seen dead people. And I wasn't scared of it. It was just something that I didn't really understand, but
Yep.
I've remembered very early memories. I've had memories of being a baby, very small, describing houses, So I think, I've always just been a little bit different, a little bit connected, and found it hard to
Yep.
fit in and all those things. But I did have a lady sort of come into my room every night, and she didn't have any sort of facial features or fingers or any sort of definition, but she was a real kind of guardian energy. And she used to stand at the end of my bed, and I thought, oh, this is strange. And so I went to school one day, and I'm like, hey guys, has anyone else seen this lady, without the face and without the
Yep.
fingers? And all my schoolmates were just like, what? Like terrified. And I was like, oh, maybe other people don't do that. Maybe other people don't do the same thing.
Yep.
So I kind of realized it was a bit different. That was when I realized, maybe this is like something. And, I was scared of it for a long time. And then, it took me a long time to sort of reactivate it. But going to New York and staying in a very haunted house
Yep.
was where I sort of joined. I joined a paranormal group after that. So that's sort of
Yep.
where my
So
story came from.
when did the fear come in?
Probably
When
from
did
my parents, because I told my
Okay.
parents that I was having dreams and they were coming true. So I was
Yep.
actually predicting, things about the future and things that were happening in the family. And my dad was like, I think that's the devil and that's not good. And so I got really afraid of it. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's kind of where it came from,
Yep.
was the parents. Yeah. And that's why I work with a lot of kids these days, because I'm like, I don't want them to be afraid of this, because that can cause a lot of mental health issues, I think.
Yep.
So it's really important just to support that and go, you know what, it's cool. We'll call an Archangel Michael. We'll do some prayers and make sure that it's nothing super negative.
Yep.
But it's such a gift, and I really want kids to kind of just continue to develop that, and not be afraid of that.
Did you do much work with kids?
A lot. Yeah, I don't
Yep.
advertise it, but they seem to find me. The parents bring them. I've got regularly, I would say daily, I'd have kids coming after school.
Yep.
And really, I'm giving them the messages that I wish that I had. I'm paying it
Yeah.
forward a little bit, I think, because
Yep.
there was no one like me when I grew up. There were no crystal shops. We used to collect stones in the driveway, and that was awesome. It was like we didn't have access to the things we have access to now. So kids actually can go and buy crystals. I mean, that just wasn't a thing. And if I had that, I think I would have been a different person,
Yep.
because once you disconnect from spirit, as I'm sure you're aware, life gets harder, when you don't have that connection to spirit anymore. And I don't feel my, angels around or any of that, like it just gets a lot harder. And so there's a
Yep.
big period of my life where I was like, I just feel like there's something missing. And that's what I've been searching for and trying to reconnect to. But yeah, kids daily basis pretty much after school. And some of them don't like me very much because I'm like, the TV in your bedroom, because you're really sensitive, the TV in your bedroom, it's got to go. Kids don't like hearing that. Less time on your device.
No.
They don't like hearing that so much, Brooke. But it is the EMF. And we were sort of talking a bit about that before the show tonight. EMF, which comes from your iPads, your phones, computers, all of that, fridges. It's like that really affects those kids that are hypersensitive, and
what sort of way?
Keep away from it all.
What sort of way does it affect them?
It can cause, sleeplessness. It can keep their minds too active. So their brain waves, if you've got a phone next to your head, I've got clients who actually sleep with their phone under their pillow. And there's no judgment. It's just that we don't realize this because we didn't grow up with devices. So we've been loaded with all these devices. And I swear, people are sleeping with them under their pillow. And it's like all that, energy coming out, the phone searching for signals, that's going into your head. And it's like it keeps all your brain waves super active. So you're getting less REM and you're not dreaming as much, for a child, I've had kids with their bed and great big TV right next to the bed and all the electricity, power, everything coming off that. And they're not sleeping. Mum and dad are like, they're sleeping like for 2 hours a night and they're just tired all the time. I've got kids sitting here doing readings with me and they're yawning the entire time. They're yawning. Kids should be getting 8-10 hours of sleep. So the TVs and the devices are keeping them super active. And also sometimes, making them more likely to, bring earthbounds home, so spirit, because of all the energy in the room. That's how they charge up. So if you've got all those devices around, earthbounds are like, wow, this is great. I can get in here and it's, we can charge up and, kids' energy as well. It's just a bit of a vicious cycle. So we really need to look at that, how we're managing technology in, kids' bedrooms.
Yeah, well, even our own. I mean,
absolutely.
I've been, it's like when you tell people to get out in nature, I'd go down the beach. And until you meditate for an hour down the beach, and then you start walking back up to the road, and then you start feeling the electromagnetic frequency, all the power lines, and all that. You just don't notice it in your day when you're in your house because you're bombarded all the time.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. You got to watch power boxes too in houses. That's a big thing I do with my clearings, is looking where the power box is located. Usually it's next to the garage, but unfortunately I've got one on the wall here. So this is what I read from. So I've got some devices in there to block that. But I've got a power box on the wall there. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So what with the power box there? Because I've heard that before.
Yeah.
What is it? How does that sort of?
Yeah, I was getting a lot of headaches and confusion, like hard to get clarity, and because I read in here, so I was getting quite confused. So yeah, headaches and confusion is a big one, and that's a lot of people come to me with that. A lot of people came to me with brain fog. And it's like many times how often you're on these devices and stuff. We need to start to look at, that sort of thing. But the power boxes are not great. That was a very bad design. We didn't build this house. Yeah.
Oh, well, now you've got an excuse to go and get like a $2.5 grand shungite tower to put behind you.
Yeah. There's my shungite right there on my computer.
So tell us about, so with the kids that you work with, sort of, what are you sort of training them in? Or
well, it's not necessarily, well, it's kind of is a training, but it's basically I bring in their loved ones. So I do a lot of mediumship, bring in the loved ones, because a lot of these kids that I'm working with, I've got quite a few clients who are psychologists, and the psychologist clients of mine are recommending certain kids come to me. So generally speaking, these kids have either been diagnosed with something, they're on medication for something, they're not coping, but they're recommending they come to me because they've got some sort of, spiritual gift. And they feel like that they may be actually seeing spirit, communicating with spirit or something. So I'm trying to bring in the loved one to give me advice around, what do we need to do with this child? What's the best course of action? So I rely very heavily on mediumship for all of this. So it's different for everyone. But basically we're trying to get them okay with communicating with spirit, okay with taking charge and going, no, I don't want you in my room. Can you please go? This is scaring me. A lot of the time it is just loved ones. A lot of the time they're terrified of everything, but sometimes it is just a grandparent. Sometimes it isn't something they need to worry about. So I talk to them about what's your feeling? What does it make you feel like? Does it feel scary or does it feel positive? So really trusting their feelings around that, because we don't just be terrified of everything across the board. So, if they do have particular gifts in a particular area, then I guess I work with them to develop those particular gifts. But really, it's to get rid of the fear, Brooke, because source energy is everything. Source is love. It's powerful. And it's like if they can understand, all right, you call in Archangel Michael, he's got his big sword. He's the protector. So you call him in, the boys love that. The boys love Archangel Michael with his big sword. So you call him in, you do your prayers, do your little blessings and all of that sort of stuff. But source energy is what we do. So sometimes I get them to get a handful of love and just chuck it, throw it at that, whatever that is, whatever that is over there, throw love, because source is really, really powerful, and nothing, it's like Teflon, nothing's going to stick to you. You know what I mean? I get kids to bubble themselves. I get them to put themselves in a space suit with a little helmet on. So get them to do that as well and zip it up. So that's something that I get them to do as well. So protection. So it's like all these things that we didn't learn, and I didn't learn until I was in my 30s to do protection. I didn't know how to do it. So it's like this is basic stuff, but someone's got to give that information. So that's what I'm sort of working with a lot of the kids on. However, I'm doing a lot of healings on the kids. I'm pointing over here because my table's over here. I'm doing a lot of healings on the kids too, and kids with on the spectrum, autism, any of those things respond really, really well to Reiki. And I find they drop out, and I've had parents here in tears going, I couldn't get my kid to sleep. She won't sleep. They drop out on the table and they're snoring, and mum's like deliriously happy, tears, the whole thing. And it's so amazing, so amazing. It's like a miracle. They really react well to the healing.
And then you turn on the TV and they wake straight up. See, I told you.
They get on those devices again. It's like, no, all the good work.
I mean, I'm bad for that too, and I've just try to do that as much as possible when I don't have to get up early, is turn the phone off in my bedroom, because we're just so used to having it as an alarm clock.
That's it.
And or even just turn the Wi-Fi off on it so it's not going through you to get to your phone.
Precisely.
It's shocking.
Yep.
So you do house clearings. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So a lot of this does come down to the kids as well. So a lot of the time when we are doing house clearings, it is for people with teenage children. So I do find, when I say teenage, it can even be younger than that. 9 and 11 seems to be a key age that I work with families. But yeah, often there's teenagers there, Brooke, because like I said before, if they've got devices and things in the room and in the house, power boxes, etc., if there are earth bands hanging around, they will most likely to go to the families where there's teenage children, because they're hormonal, there's a lot of emotions, strong emotions, and that can charge them up. So that's where we usually go. And often I find that a lot of the family members are quite ill. So a lot of the time the kids aren't sleeping enough, and they can get sick. So that's why I go and do house clearings, because it's like if there's an energy there draining the kids, the pets, and even I've had pets that have been really sick and drained. And we need to move those energies on, because they're sort of draining the family. So I move a lot of souls into the light to help them cross. But that's a big part of what I do. And I do find that generally speaking, there's a lot of teenagers in the houses that I work with, and they often don't know what they're doing. The people in the house are like, oh, I'm smudging, but and what are you doing? Oh, well, I'm just sort of waving it around. We need to have intention. Intention's everything. We need to work from one end of the house to the other. So we need to actually clear from the doorways to the windows, out the window, round it up, whatever it is. But sometimes you do need a little bit of an extra assistance, if it is earthbounds and things like that, and you're not comfortable or confident, then that's why someone like myself could be really handy. And we don't need to be there present. I can do things remotely. We don't need to be there physically. Everything is possible remotely. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Knowing teenagers with all their emotions, I thought they'd be like a Kentucky feed for the.
It's a sponge. It's moth to a flame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, big time. Actually, I will tell you, Brooke, there's this interesting story. This is about permission. So before I do a house clearing, what I do is I tune in remotely. So I use my astral body to go to the house, and I can walk around. I can see where the rooms are, the layout, the hot spots, the whole thing. So it's really good to do that prior, because sometimes, if it is something a little bit more sinister or, mental health, potential, for someone to be unwell that way, we need to have a heads up about all of that for my team so that we're not going in blind. So that's why I do my remote viewing first. Now, I had an interesting case, because I love stories. I had an interesting case where a lady, through my group, so I don't deal, as a psychic medium, I didn't deal with the customers or clients directly. So they came to me, my team, and they said, look, there's this lady, you need to look at her parents-in-law's house. They've got some spiritual stuff going on, and supernatural stuff. And I was like, sure. So I went to tune in and I'm like, blank. There was nothing. And it's never happened before. It was like literally I went to go there and I had the address, I had their names, and that's one of the things that I get.
Yep.
And I just got this grey wall. It was like literally a grey wall. And I was like, what is this? And so I checked with them and they said, yep, we definitely have permission. She got permission, went back in, grey wall. And I went back to them a third time and I said, I don't think she's got permission, guys, because I can't get in and this has never happened before. And they said to me, they went back and checked and she goes, all right, you got me. And she said, I actually just don't like them and I just wanted to spy on them and, see what they were doing. So, yeah. So this is permission. So this stops me as a, remote viewing person from just going to my neighbor's house, from going to someone I don't like's house, from going to, you know what I mean? Because that's against universal order. So that lady learned a difficult lesson, but, I was like, Spirit's amazing. Like that's never happened to me before, but I just thought, what could this be? And I just thought it has to be permission. She hasn't given me permission. She hasn't got permission, You can't lie in this realm. You can't lie. That's the thing.
Did that freak you out when that happened? Like you're going, is there something wrong? What have I done?
I was really confused. I was like, what is going on? And when I heard her answer, I was like, well, serves you right. Serves you right. That's not how it's supposed to work. That's not what the gift is for. Spying. No. Much. Yeah.
No. So with the you've done you do forensic.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Yeah, so I studied under Lisa Williams. She's very well known medium, and she worked with Scotland Yard. She's now based in America, so she's based over there, and she's doing a lot of work for those guys. She's worked for the CIA, so really high up places. So I studied under her, and I've just always been interested. I think what I say to people a lot of the time, Brooke, is what did you grow up watching? What did you grow up looking at? And I was always into my crime and trying to solve mysteries and things like that. So I've always loved to watch the true killer, anything about serial killers,
true crimes,
true crime podcasts, the whole lot. I love it. And I think that when you have that natural draw to watch those sorts of things, that's a very big sign about where you should be heading, with your own career and life purpose and all of that. So when I got into this, and I don't advertise it, I don't say I'm a forensic medium, I don't put it up anywhere. But again, with the kids, it's like people just find you. And when I say people, it's like the loved ones find me. And they're like, this lady's going to, be able to be the best person for me to communicate with. And honestly, I mean, we had a young man stabbed to death, a young boy up on the Sunshine Coast here. Schoolboy was 15 and it was over a girl. And so I've read for two of his schoolmates. And I didn't advertise anything, but he found me with two different friends, the whole thing. And he wants some resolution here. So a lot of the time, it's about murders, suicides, abductions, missing kids, all of that sort of stuff. That's forensic. So it deals with anything that the police would get involved with. Because even, a suicide is treated as like suspicious until it's proven, otherwise, that it's not suspicious, basically. So that's all the kind of stuff that I'm really passionate about. I like to find answers. And I was a journalist. So I've only been doing this for less than 2 years, but I was a journo. And that was, what I did as a journalist. I tried to find answers. I investigated. So this is kind of moving into this realm now. So I feel like I've got a really good grounding because in this realm, it's like I want to find the answer. I had a lady today that I read for, and she had a very good friend of hers. It was her ex-partner's best mate, and he was found dead at a campsite. And he had a tent rope around his neck. And I was getting all the physical, everything. And she's like, yep, that's definitely him. And there was an injustice there. And it was like, that's not what has presented or what they've caused. They've ruled it suicide. It wasn't suicide. So we were going through some of the toxicology reports with him, telling me the information. And she's going, Michelle, that's right. That's correct. So I can't make this stuff up. But that's what I'm passionate about. I want to get the answers, Brooke. And that's
absolutely.
What I do, and that's what I'm doing now as a reader. But people are finding me, people who have lost people to suicide or whatever it is, or suspected, or any kind of injustice, kids that are sort of taken too soon or whatever it is. I do tend to find that I get a lot of that sort of energy into my room. And I want to find out what really happened. I did have can I share a story quickly?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's an amazing story a couple of years, right at the beginning of me getting into this full time. Read for a lady. It was quite shocking. This actually really affected me. She was driving. I saw a truck. So I didn't know she was driving, but I saw a truck, and the truck sort of rolled or did something or other, and I was in the cabin, and it was a male. It was her husband. And I felt like I had been dismembered, which is not a nice feeling. And it's very unusual to describe that feeling, but it's almost like my limbs, my head, everything was in a different place it shouldn't have been in, if that makes sense. So basically the person was dismembered. So I said this to the lady, and I said, look, he's also referencing a little baby. There's like a baby or a pregnancy or something. She informed me that she'd been driving behind her husband. So he was in a truck. He was a truck driver. She was in a vehicle behind him. She was 8 months pregnant with their daughter. I've actually since read for her daughter as well, connected her to her father, because she never met him. She was still in her mum's belly. So mum's 8 months pregnant following her husband. He rolled the truck and he was dismembered. So she wasn't allowed in there. They wouldn't let her look because it was just horrendous. But he showed me in the reading, and this is why I like forensics, because he showed me autopsy photos. And he said, there's these photos, you know, And she said, well, I've been trying to get a hold of them, and COVID was slowing the process down, so she hadn't been able to see. But she needed to see the photos for her to get closure. That was what she needed. So we talked her through the process. I gave her a time frame. She ended up seeing the photos, and she wrote back to me and thanked me. And she was like, I'm so grateful that I got to see this, because I now finally have closure. So I was like really, really happy to be able to do that for her. And to be able to read for her daughter. You know, his daughter wasn't even born, you know, at the time her dad was killed, which is just horrendous. She never even got to meet him. So that for me was really, really amazing, really, really special. But it really affected me. When I got off that reading, I cried, you know, because we're human as well. And I do feel a lot. And I was really, I'll never forget that reading, never forget it. You know, and she's still a friend of mine. She still reads with me. She still has readings with me too. So yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with the you were saying that with the house clearings, you were talking about that the spirits coming in. Now, some of those spirits, do they know what they're doing, or they when they're drawing energy from us, do they know what they're doing?
I mean, they need it to be able to communicate.
Yep.
So a lot of the time, you know, and it's not that they're sinister, it's just that they're confused. Some of them don't realize they've died. So a lot of the time we're counselors, honestly. We go in and we're like, hey, you know, you're not here anymore, you're deceased. Because if you drop dead from a heart attack, it's very sudden. Like, you're alive and then you're dead. What happened in there, you know? So a lot of them are confused. So a lot of the time we're going in and explaining to them, you know, that you're dead and you need to move on. So that's a big part of what we do. So there's a lot of counseling involved. There's also people who are very religious, and they think that we're not good people as well. So sometimes they're like, hey, I don't even believe in you. And we're like, we're the only ones who can hear right now. So, you know, I'm your best bet at the moment, mate, you know? But yeah, there's a lot of that. So it's not that they're sinister. A lot of the time it is that they're just confused. There was one guy who was actually weirdly appearing to my client in the toilet. So every time we went to the toilet, there was this guy in his toilet, and then he'd disappear. Every time I open the door, the guy's there again, disappear. And it turns out that, because I said, oh, was there a tree here? Have you done something to a tree, like cut branches off or done something? And the guy's like, yeah. And he goes, this big mango tree out the back. And I had a look, and he'd hacked it to bits. And the guy was really angry. So he had the landowner there, that house wasn't there. So I think he showed me that he had his bathtub in that space where the toilet was. And he was like, I'm trying to get this guy's attention. And that was the only way he could do it. So every time we opened the toilet door, hi, and then he disappeared. And it was the tree. He was angry about the tree. And I said, mate, you need to make some amends here. And I'm like, sorry about the tree, la, la, la. Hasn't seen him again. So it was just like giving that message was enough to make him go. But he was frightening the kids. He was hanging around the kids, and I'm getting quite scared. So what we got to remember, like I said before with the kids, is we don't want the fear, because they feed off the fear. So if we can get everyone understanding this is just source energy, just love, send them away with love, all of that, we don't want the fear, because otherwise it just continues this cycle of fear, and they feed off it, fear, and they feed off it. But I won't say they all have bad intentions, but these guys are intelligent. When you said, are they intelligent? They're intelligent. So I can communicate, I can reason with them. And ideally I want to get them into the light. But the other thing you've got to be aware of is with shadow figures, for example. So sometimes people have, you know, a shadow figure racing around the house or something like that. Those don't have an intelligence. We can't communicate with them. So that's heading into kind of a different realm. But the earthbound's definitely intelligent. But there is residual energy too. So sometimes you have like the old white lady, the lady in the white dress floating down the hallway, down the stairs. You hear about stuff like that. That's something that's residual. So there's been some sort of footprint left, whether she was murdered, whether something untoward happened, that leaves a footprint. So that little thing is just playing out over and over and over,
Yeah,
but you
yeah,
can't communicate with her, you can't move her on or anything like that. It's like a battlefield, like a
yep, yep.
battlefield. There's that footprint. Yeah.
Yeah, I watch some YouTube stuff, and you see a lot of that, and a lot of
Yeah.
shadow people all the
Yep.
time.
Yep. And there's no
Um,
communicating.
so the shadow people, are they feeders? Do they feed on us?
It's a darker energy, and
Yep.
yeah, it is sort of a similar thing. And the only way for us to sort of move them on is for someone like myself, usually, to come in and sort of send them away, get the angels in, love and light,
Yep.
and sort of raise the vibration to a certain point.
That's it.
So generally, when they're in there, it's that everything in the house is really heavy. They haven't cleansed. Everything's just really low. And then those energies will sort of come in, So usually you'll get someone like me to sort of move them on.
Yep.
But they generally feed off the fear, the same thing. But also when people get sick, they can make people sick as well.
Yeah.
So again, that's a kind of thing, the kind of energy we don't want to have around. So it's really about raising the vibration. Lots of laughter. A lot of the time we come in and we just crack jokes. Because you see me, I'm like, ha, ha, ha,
Yep.
cracking jokes. You've had readings with me. It's like cracking jokes is the best thing. And we've got some real clowns in our group from the Gold Coast when I was working down there. And they just come in and they're hilarious. And we're all like, ah. And already the energy's feeling different. We haven't even done the clearing yet. But already the energy feels different because we're like clowns. And then at the end of it, often we have a great laugh as well. And it's like the energy is totally different. You walk out and it's like brighter. People may notice lighter energy in their house. It's like the lights are brighter or something. It's amazing.
And the customer's like, oh, did we ring the right people?
Yeah. People, it's funny, Brooke, because people get so used to that energy, and then you raise it and you're going, oh my God, this feels totally different, because they just get used to it and they're like, oh, it feels fine. It's amazing.
I mean, I even noticed that the other day I went for a ride on my mountain bike, and I go down the river, and then I'll stop certain places and just have a breather before I come back. And I went into the parklands, and I just got sat down, and I just felt like looking over my shoulder all the time. I think this place, and then I noticed that as soon as I came under a bridge, the whole energy shifted.
Wow.
And it was in the Adelaide parklands, and I'm thinking, and people don't. Most people don't realise. They just will be walking along and just get agitated.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, we had an experience with my husband. There's a train bridge, and we went for a walk along. It's like an old train track. So you walk along the old train track, but they've converted it into like a little path now. And there's a train bridge. And we were sort of walking through it, and it was really, really dark, really dark. So we're sort of walking through, and I'm like, my husband's like, oh, maybe we should just walk around. Like there were stairs, you could go around it. And I'm like, no, we're going through. Let's go through this train bridge. And on the way back, he's like, I'm really worried about this. I don't really want to go through. I'm like, let's just go through, here we are. So we're like walking through this thing. He's got his light on his phone, and he's like shining it at everything. And oh my God, the things that my husband goes through, Brooke, I can't even tell you. But anyway, we went through this thing, and I'm really sensitive, as you know. So I'm walking along, and we've gone through the train bridge, and there were stories of a suicide there, like someone hanging or something or other. So I'm like walking through, and then I'm like, who's that? And I didn't say anything to my husband. He's walking along nonchalant, and I'm going, who's behind us? And then I felt this energy, and it was a suicide. He was trying to get into my energy field. And I've got a little weak spot in my back. I've injured my back in a car accident. So I was well aware of that. And I went, hey, nah, that's not happening. So in my mind, I'm not saying anything to my husband. I'm like, love and light, love and light, love and light. I'm doing the Lord's Prayer. I'm like getting away from me. I'm building my defenses around myself. Before I could move on to do my husband, because I thought he's going to try him next, my husband turned around and started vomiting everywhere.
Oh.
Yeah.
There you go.
So he really affected him with his, it was like he knew what was coming. He knew I was going to send him back, because I'm like, you don't belong here. You need to go back to where you came from. And as I was doing that, he gave my husband a massive dose of terrible energy. And all of a sudden my husband's dry reaching all over the ground. And I'm like, bum. Yeah. So, you do have to be careful. And my husband was like, I probably should have listened to him, because he was like, we don't want to go under there. And he's not as protected as me. I'm not, he's not as aware. And sometimes, we do have to listen to our spouses as much as we don't like to admit that, Brooke. Yeah, I think
but it we look like a lot of steps,
Yeah.
It's a quick way. Let's just go. Come on. What's the worst thing that can happen?
Here. I don't like exercise. I like to park right at the front door of the shopping centre and walk in here. I don't park down the back of the shopping centre.
Oh, that's just manifesting car parks. That's the beginner's tool.
Parking fairy, that's me. Yeah, I love it.
So with mediumship.
Yes.
Okay. You train people in that?
Yeah.
You do
Teach
you
mediumship. Yeah.
teach
Yeah.
that? Because there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that watch this show that are studying mediumship or becoming
Uh-huh.
mediums.
Amazing.
So,
Yeah.
are there any pointers, or you saving that for your course?
Oh, no, not at all. The reason I actually started teaching, Brooke, is because I listen to people, and I want
Yep.
to say this because, when I was working at in hospitality, people used to say to me, "I have a great voice, and you should get into radio." That's why I did radio. So I've
Yep.
always listened to people. So when I was doing this, I started doing this, and I had 3 or 4 people, maybe 5 people, go, "Do you teach at all?" And I was like, "No, I've been doing this for like less than 3 months." At that point, I hadn't even been doing
Yep.
this 3 months full time, and people were asking me, "Do you teach? Do you teach? Do you teach?" And I thought, geez, that's someone's giving me a bit of a sign here, you know. Maybe I should start teaching. And so I did. 3 months in, I launched my mentorship program. So it felt ridiculous, you know. But I do, and I don't feel like this is a competition. I don't feel like it's me competing against anyone else, and that's really
Yep.
important. Is that there's enough for all of us, you know. Everyone has a different specialty. I love children, I love animals, and they're the big part of what I communicate with.
Yep.
Animal communications is huge. But the forensics as well, I love. But children animals are a big thing for me. So it's like everyone has their own little specialty. So that's what I feel like is I want to share that, you know, that gift and get more people, you know, into this realm because it's freaking awesome, you know, to be able
Yep.
to communicate with people and provide that bridge, especially during COVID. Because funerals limited, you know, all of that, people felt terrible. If they couldn't get all their family there, it's like, did my loved one dislike that? Are they okay with that? A lot of that was a lot of what I was doing when I started. It's
Yeah.
settled down a little bit now because I think funerals are sort of back to normal, but that was a big part of what I did. So in terms of mediumship, what I want to say to people is it's all about your intuition. And it's also because that's what I'm doing. Basically, I started
Yep.
out like, I'm just going to do an intuitive reading here. If spirit shows up, excellent. But really, it starts with your intuition. So if you want to do anything like this, if you've got intuition, you can do it. The thing with mediumship is that we need to have really clean energy. So I fast a lot. I make sure that, you know, I only have liquid in my
Yep.
system. I don't eat right before a reading. I don't eat a lot during the day. And then I have a larger meal at night, you know, proper dinner. But honestly, during the day, Brooke, I'm really just having a lot of liquid. So if you
Yep.
want to do mediumship, because when they come in, they need energy. We need energy to be able to connect to that and to keep our vibration high too. So a lot of plant-based, you know, all of that stuff is my biggest tip. I use lavender oil, so that allows me to connect to spirit very quickly.
Yep.
So I use the lavender oil, rub my hands together, hands up to the face. That brings me back to the present, so that my
Yep.
head's coming out of it now. So that's a really good way to connect as well. But what I want to say to people is notice how you react to spirit. So you might find your ears start ringing, going deaf. There's all the different clairs that we have. And so
Yep.
it's whatever you're strong in naturally. So my eyes are very strong for being a journalist because I watch people, body movement, etc. And my
Yep.
ears are very strong, clairaudience. So when I started out, basically it just started with my ears ringing, going deaf, and then spirit would come in. They'd let me know. That's how
Okay.
I when I developed my empath abilities when I wasn't a journo anymore, I developed my empath more, my clairsentient more, so I physically feel.
Yep.
So initially then they would come in and I'd cry. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a sign they're here. So the ears stopped, but then I started to cry. The next step was the physical. So that's when
Yep.
you know, connected with me. I feel your loved ones physically now. So it's just what they felt before they crossed. And then I get into the visuals and all the other stuff sort of kicks in after that. So once we develop that little connection, then we're off and rolling. A lot of people do ask me with mediumship when I'm teaching is, what if I lose a connection? Because a lot of people freak out. You know, they
Yep.
feel like they have a connection, but then it drops out. And it's like we just distract ourselves. That's my biggest message, is distract yourself. I use cards because I like to shuffle and just distract myself. If someone asks me
Yep.
something I get into their head, I'm just gonna distract myself over here. I'm gonna try to come back to you in a moment. I'll give you a really good example of this, and this is
Yep.
amazing how spirit is so incredible. I was reading for a girl, and it was to do with that kid that was stabbed to death over the girl. So
Yep.
I was reading for one of his schoolmates, and she asked in her mind, this is amazing how clever spirit is. She nearly ran out of the room. She was so freaked out. She said to her friend, and this has happened a few times, in her mind, didn't tell me, in her mind, she said to her friend, mate, are you going to be there for my driving test? I've got my driving test coming out. Are you going to be there? So she said that in her head to him. Within a second, I said to her, I've got a learner sticker in front of me. Who's getting their driving test? There's like a learner sticker. This gentleman's sitting in the back seat. and it's like I'm backseat driving you. So he's being a little bit comical about it. He was like humorous about it, but he answered the question within a split second. She asked the question, and then I was in the driver's seat. I'm like, I'm here. I'm doing my learners. I'm doing the test. I'm with you. And she was like, oh my God, she nearly ran out of the room. And I was like, you came here to do mediumship, right? What do you mean? She goes, but I just asked a question. You answered. Oh my God. She was like, it's some sort of miracle. And I'm like, but that's what I'm doing. That's the whole thing that people don't realize, you know, because they're like, oh, okay, it's been airy fairy, whatever. And then she asked a question, I answered it, and she was in freak out town. I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? But that's mediumship, Brooke, and that's why I love it, because these guys are really there. But the thing is, you know, we can see them and other people can't. So that's why it's important to bring through, I guess, the clarity and, you know, the really clear messages. And I would say to people who are watching tonight is it's all about the evidence, you know, all about that evidence. Trying to bring it through as accurately as possible, because I have a lot of skeptics show up and they go to me, I don't believe in your stuff. I don't believe you're doing anything here. So I'm always up against it. You know, quite often people will come in and test me, but it's not entering that place of fear. It's just I've got to stay in that, you know, love and just trust spirit and hope that they, you know, give me the right messages. But really good example.
I love skepticism.
Oh yeah, totally. Because I like to prove them wrong.
Yeah. I'm a skepticism with myself. I'm like,
yeah, that's it. I'm the same as you. Question everything. Yeah.
That's it. Was that me?
That's it. That's it.
But you do eventually pick it up when you start, as you say, when you start getting evidence, things that you know you possibly could. But
correct. And it's following those little paths. It's like choose your own adventure, the way I describe it. If we get a bit of confirmation and I say this thing and they go, oh yeah, that's that, then we kind of follow the little paths. It's like choose your own adventure. And that's what you want to do as a medium.
They were great books. Do they still make them? I remember those as a kid.
Oh yeah. I don't know if they still make them, but yeah, choose your own adventure was great.
So what's I getting at? With the so sometimes I guess that when you start your training and that sort of thing, people don't even realize that they're doing a lot of it already. They just think it's inside their head, and they just have no idea.
That's such a good point. Yeah, because when I'm teaching, especially like the vision, clairvoyance, and stuff like that, people are like, they don't think they're doing anything. And it's like, you know, they're expecting it to be like a big, you know, watching a TV, like very clear. And for some people, it might be that clear. But for a lot of us, because it's requiring our energy as well, and we're connecting to spirit and all of that, it's a little bit like it's like your imagination. Really, it feels like your imagination. And you only realize you're doing it because when you're sort of bringing through this and this and this and this and this, and the person's going, oh my God, yeah, that happened yesterday and this and that, that's the only reason you realize you're doing anything. So it does feel very much like your imagination, the clairvoyance. But with the physical stuff, it's so interesting because when I'm teaching people, and I'll use one example from Western Australia, a client I've got over there, a mentorship client, and I'm like, can you physically feel spirit? And she's like, no, definitely can't. No. She's like, I can't do it. And I said, all right. All right, let's connect. I'll bring someone in, and, you know, usually bring in someone that I work with in mediumship, passed over loved one, brought them in, and I'm like, all right, so chop, throw it away. That's one of the techniques I use. So throw away your feelings for yourself. You don't want to feel this anymore. I want you to feel the energy from this person in the room. And she was like, oh, I can't do it. Whoa, hang on. What's this thing? There's a heart. What's with my heart? What's going on with my heart? She's like, that's weird. That came out of nowhere. And then she's like, there's something in my head as well, and this and that. She started going through, and she pretty much diagnosed this person that I brought into the room, and she could not believe it. She was like, I've never done that before. That she was like, it wasn't my thing. And all of a sudden I felt my heart, like someone had stabbed me in the heart. And it was a heart attack. It was someone who died from a heart attack. And she was so amazed. And I'm like, that's what it feels like. So it's just, we've got to learn. And this is really important for empaths, Brooke, because people who are empathic, they're walking around all day, every day, feeling everyone's anxiety, feeling everyone's depression, feeling everyone's, you know, stomach issues, everyone's problems. They're walking around feeling everyone's stuff. And this is kids as well. So it's like we need to learn, and that's what I've learned in this game, is to separate my energy. So if it's not mine, I don't want it. And I'm doing that on a daily, if not multiple times a day basis. It's not mine, it's taken away. Yeah? So it's like that's what I want everyone who's watching to hear, is separate your energy. It's not yours. Send it away.
Yeah.
This is simply the intention.
Yeah, I see that all the time. People walking around not clearing their space. And I'm just saying, do you ever clean your house, or do you like walk or do you like living in a mess? I said,
Yeah,
energetically, you're doing the same thing.
that's it.
You're walking around everyone's stuff. But I
Correct.
guess if people aren't aware, it makes it hard.
That's it. Yeah.
Because when you become aware, you'll be like going about your normal business, and then you suddenly you start feeling really down and depressed. And if you don't know, you're like, oh, what am I
Yes.
worried about?
That's
You know.
it.
But
Yeah.
if you know what's going on, you're like, whose energy is that? You know.
Exactly. But it does catch you unawares. Like, it always catches you unawares, because even me, like, I'm aware of it,
Mm.
but still I'll have something happen and I'll go, oh God, what is that? Like, my mum had cancer, and so I did a healing on mum,
Yep.
and I came home, and I remember curling up in a fetal position in the cupboard, and my husband came in and found me, and he's like, "What's the matter with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I think I'm dying." Like, literally, and I didn't put two and two together. Like, I did the
Yep.
healing on her, drove home, and I'm thinking, oh God, I had the worst pains in my abdo. She was, I think it was uterine cancer.
Yep.
And I had the worst pains in my abdomen, and then I couldn't get up. And my husband said, "Is it the healing that you did?" Like, he was the one that sort of put two and two together. He said, "The healing
Yep.
you did." And I went, "Oh my God, I think I've tried to take her stuff." And as soon as I realized that, it went, and I didn't have any pain.
Oh, good.
So this is really important, because if I didn't cotton on to what that was,
Yeah.
that wouldn't have emerged or manifested as a physical thing. And because you say dying, broken heart. How many people have lost their husband or wife
Yep.
and then they've died soon after them? You can die from a broken heart. So we
Yeah.
need to, recognize the connection with this and illness, because pretty much on a daily basis, I'm going through my Louise Hay book, the
Yep.
Heal Your Life book. It's like on a daily basis. And I had a girlfriend of mine, so many stories of miracle healings. Girlfriend of mine, her nan was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I was like, where is it in the body? Looked up my Louise Hay book, and I was like, she hasn't let go of her husband. So her husband had died, and she hadn't accepted it. She was still hanging on. So I told her granddaughter to tell her. She went and told her nan. Her nan's still alive 10 years later. She was terminal. She was given like weeks.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. She'd lost a lot of weight, and it was pretty far gone. The doctors couldn't explain it then or now. They can't explain it. It's a miracle. So once you put that attention on the emotion and the thing connected to that, and they deal with it, that's the important thing, is they do something about it. If they can accept it and do the work, we can heal anything, mate. This is powerful. Really, really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's just people don't have the tools. They don't have any idea. They think they're going to pop it. They think they're going to pop a pill.
That's it.
And that'll fix everything.
Yep.
Let alone change the diet.
I know. Diet. Oh my God, daily basis. Diet, exercise. Here we are. Get some more rest.
Yeah.
Like, that solves everything.
But it's just amazing when you have a look at just the changes the basics can do, but the basics can do. But it's really hard when I look back before I become aware and before I become awakened. I'm just going through the motions of life. I just had very not a clue about any of the tools that to even it was so 3D that I had to really fight with myself to get myself out of the old ways. It was really hard.
Yeah. And I think we've all been there, Brooke, and I think that's what makes us healers. And I think that's why we're relatable, because it's like we're not these angels flying around with wings. Like, we've all been through it as well, and that's what gives us life experience and makes us more empathetic, I think. And we've all had those turning points, I think, where we've hit rock bottom and we've just gone, you know what, there's got to be more. There's got to be more to life than this. And I've certainly felt that in my own life, where, connection to spirit's gotten me through some really challenging things, in life. And I don't know where I'd be without my angels. I mean, I was very, very tired. I was working, when I was a journalist, I was doing a lot of hours, and I was working freelance, and 7 days a week, morning, I was opening, closing, the whole thing. I was so tired. And I remember, driving along one time, and I was merging into traffic, and I wasn't looking, and I just started merging across into another lane. And I felt this energy, and I don't know what it was. I feel like it was an angel, but it came through the center of my car, grabbed onto my steering wheel, felt like a physical being, but I couldn't see anything, grabbed onto my steering wheel and started turning the other direction. And I'm fighting it. I'm going, what's going on here? I was deliriously tired, let me tell you. Yep. And I'm trying to turn, and it's turning the other way. I couldn't fight it. I wasn't strong enough. And I finally kind of, like, my logical mind's gone, what the actual is this? Like, what is actually happening? And then I finally looked, and there's this great big 4-wheel drive, huge 4-wheel drive next to me. And I was in a tiny little Mazda 2. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I've then gone back into where I should have been in the correct lane. And then the thing just disappeared. And I was like, I've got to tell you, I had to pull over and recover. I was so emotional because I've always felt, probably like yourself, really protected. And I've had multiple encounters like that where it's like I've dodged death. You know, I've dodged death because I know that I'm here for a purpose. I'm not saying that other people aren't, but I know I'm here for a reason. And that was just a really dumb thing. And I was really tired, and I stopped freelancing pretty much after that because I was like, I can't do this. You know, it's not good for me physically. And I pretty much shut down my connection as well because I was so tired. You know, and that was a big one. So they're always there as backup. You know, even though I hadn't felt and connected to spirit for quite a while at that point, they're always there ready to go, you know, need be. And that was one of those moments where I know that I was saved, because it could have been very, very messy otherwise if I had gone into that lane.
Wow, that's amazing. That would have taken, that must have been a lot of energy to
I imagine. It was
yeah.
like physical, the strength. I mean, I'm a human, and I could not turn that steering wheel, mate. I was trying, I couldn't turn it. You know, it took a while for my brain to kick in because I was so bloody tired. But yeah, it was amazing.
The angel was probably like, after you get home safe, I'm taking 2 days off.
Oh, mate, I tell you, I didn't tell my husband about that. He does know now, but for months and months I didn't tell him that because I thought, oh my God, he's gonna freak. He's gonna freak.
So we've got someone ask a question. He said, Joylene asks, how do I know my spirit guides? Everyone keeps telling them.
Really good
keeps
question.
telling me to.
Really good question. Literally the way that I did it, and this is what I teach in my group. Literally the way that I did it was I just set the intention that I wanted to go and find out who they were. So I did a meditation. Now, different people use different techniques, but I use a candle. When I first started, I don't use it anymore. But I use a candle. Some people have trouble with their head, you know, getting their head out of it. So when I started, I would use a candle. I'd look at the flame, close my eyes, look at the flame, close my eyes, look at the flame. If you have no trouble getting into meditation, don't worry about any of that. But that's just the way that I used to do it because I'm very logical. So I use the flame technique, and then I just said to spirit, really want to, you know, go on a journey, you know, wherever I need to go, meet with my guides and just have a conversation. So the first time that I did that, I used the candle technique to get in there. I literally was out of my body. So I felt myself sort of come out. And generally speaking, and I find that this is a dimensional thing for me, dimensional travel, is I found myself going sort of astrally up through the galaxies, and then I came back in. So that's a different dimension, I find, dimensional travel, so it's 4D, 5D. And then I was on a beach at one point. I was meeting, you know, someone of particular culture. I went to, I think, India. I went up into the mountains, into the Himalayas. I went all over the world. And I was communicating with my guides and getting names and information. And they're all different nationalities. I went to about 4 or 5 different places, and all of the different nationalities showed up as well. So that was the first time that I tried it, and that was what happened. So for me, it's just intention. But the other thing I want to suggest is music is really important. So if you've got music, you know, YouTube or, you know, Spotify, and you look up music for spirit guide connections or angel connections, that can help you raise your vibration to the point where you can connect as well. So you might want to have that playing in the background. No words is better. We don't want words usually in songs because it's distracting. But I use that candle technique, and that's what I do from this point forward. Don't always use a candle, but I just go anyway. And that's how I connected to my guides. The other way that they come through is when you're, you know, waking up between 3 and 6 in the morning. So that's where you can be doing a lot of downloads. So people are finding that they're waking up between 3 and 6. They can't really go to sleep, but they're sort of not awake, not asleep. They're in that in between. That's generally when your guides are communicating. So you might be getting songs, you might be getting numbers, different things like that. That can be the way that they can bring messages through as well. And that's pretty common for me these days to do my connections that way more so. But when I started out, it was all about the intention. I want to connect. I want to see who they are. Or you come to someone like me and we can do that for you. And I do have people test me in that way. I've had a lady who was like, I want to talk to my spirit guides. Who are they? And I was like, oh, okay. So I did a prayer, looked up there, and I said, I can see this, 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 this. And she went, oh my God, that's, and she showed me a list. She'd actually written them down. So she was actually testing me a little bit. So to this day, Brooke, I don't actually know if they were her guides or whether spirit was like, all right, we're just going to read her list. All right, this is what we're going to give to Michelle so we can tick it off the list. Because I was like, that's a bit funny that you knew all of them. But it's funny, isn't it? They're always mysterious. But that's my recommendation anyway in answer to that question.
So just keep pushing through. Just keep meditating. Just keep asking.
Yep, set the intention. But the music, as I said as well, music is it's all about the vibration. Spirit guides and all those guys are a lot higher vibrational. The first time I connected with spirit guides, this is a good story, I was waiting for Linda Willow Roberts, who's actually her own, she produces her own oracle cards, and she's a spiritual adventurer, so travels around the world to all the Stonehenges and all of that stuff. So she's amazing. I was reading for her, and it was impromptu. I'd interviewed her for a magazine that I write for, and then she's like, can you do a reading? And I was like, okay. So I went from doing interview mode, like, journalism, and then I'm like, drawing cards and all this. And then I said to her, and I hadn't connected to spirit guides before, but I was like, there's a male energy here, his father, I think. And I said, I'm in a photo, and she had the photo in her hand. She was like, this is him. And I went, oh my God. And then I had this other male energy, but it was really, really cold. And I said, he's a lot taller, he's very cold, and he's on my right. And he's like, it doesn't feel like a passed over loved one though. And he came in on my left, which is where the spirit guides come from. So ascended masters, etc. They come in on your left, and your passed over loved ones coming in on the right. So that's a bit of mediumship lesson. But I had this guy here, and she goes, oh, that's my spirit guide. And I'm like, oh my God, spirit guide. I never connected to a spirit guide before. This is before I'd done that for anyone else.
Yep.
So for myself, yeah. But for other people, I was like, oh my God. And she goes, yeah, they always come in on my right and they make me cold. Now, to this day, she's an activator like me. She was activating me, and she goes, Michelle, moving forward, you can have more of this sort of connection. And I was like, great. From that point forward, Brooke, everyone's spirit guides are coming in. Oh my God, it was like full on, like for the, the next few weeks, every single person. I'm like, oh, spirit guide, da, 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 da. And I was like, I didn't realize you could do this. So it's like sometimes we have people come to us who activate us and make us realize this is possible as well. So that was the first time I connected to someone else's. And then, it just sort of went from that point forward. It's amazing.
And we get another question.
Yes.
Amanda's asking, can we block our guides?
Can we block our guides?
Yeah, can we block our guides?
That's interesting.
Or is that more when we ignore them?
Well, yeah, I don't know about blocking. I mean, blocking to me sounds deliberate, as in like I don't want to hear from them or something like that. But yeah, if we take it in the term, in terms of, not being able to hear them, maybe. So absolutely, if your vibration is in the 3D, if you're worried about everything, stressed about everything, all of that, everything is like giving all my energy away. I'm drained. Empaths, picking up everyone else's stuff. We're not going to be able to hear them. We're not going to be able to hear them. So taking it in that way, I feel like, yes, we can. But that's more about us, not sort of being open to hearing and or being in too low of a vibration, as well. We all have a main spirit guide, Brooke, I will say. And I do work with my main spirit guide. He's an Native American Indian guy. I get him to sort out, my people when they're coming in, my passed over loved ones, getting them in order. And a lot of platform mediums do that as well. They use their main guide to get everyone in order, on stage before they go on. So the main spirit guides are really, really important. We really want to have that connection, because they know what we need to do. They know about our life purpose and everything else, and they can give us information about that. So it's super important. I would say yes, but it really is just about your vibration more than anything else.
So it'd be sort of just more like you tuning it out because your vibration.
Yeah, you're in the wrong frequency. Yeah. It's like when your ears ring or go deaf. They're trying to adjust our ears. With me, I don't see dead people all the time. So I'm sitting there having coffee with someone, just a random thing. If I have my ears ringing and going deaf, that's spirit's way of going, hey, Michelle, I'm here. So then they get my attention, and I turn around and go, oh, okay, so who is this? What's the message? So on and so forth.
Yeah.
So with me, I'm not John Edwards. I don't see them walking around. They have to ring on my ears. I call it ringing on my ears. So ringing and going deaf to get your attention. And that shows me that they're there. It's not that I'm not in the right frequency. Well, I kind of not, because I'm not really in the mode of reading. I'm just having coffee, Yeah. So they're sort of getting my attention, and then I go, oh, and then I raise my vibration, I make the choice, and then I go, all right, what's the message? And then I pass it on. So it's kind of making us aware, I guess, So people who are listening have got ears ringing or going deaf or any of that stuff. Give your ears permission to adjust, and then just allow it, and just keep, playing the music, doing other things. Third eye stuff, anything for the third eye is really good as well. Music for the third eye, coriander's great. Anything you can do to sort of boost that pineal gland is really
Coriander.
good. Coriander, yeah, it clears the pineal gland, which is connected to your third eye. It actually detoxifies it. Yeah, it's amazing. And seaweed. Seaweed is really good as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm growing coriander. I never thought of that.
Yeah, coriander is amazing.
So what you've got? So what do you offer through your websites, and you got a lot of things that you offer people?
Services and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am actually doing mentorship, as you sort of said. I've got the house clearings as a separate service. I do past life and lineage, which is really, really popular because a lot of people want to clear the karmic stuff in this lifetime because of COVID. I think everyone's wanting to do that. So I do the Reiki teaching. I have, sessions set up, but that is face-to-face. I have sessions set up this weekend. Actually, I'm doing some Reiki teaching. And I did mention to you before, I've got this house clearing thing that I'm doing. So a lot of the work that I do is house clearings, but instead of just telling everyone individually about it, I'm actually doing like a course, which is going to be documentary style. It'll be like filmed and videoed and all that. With a lot of what is it called? B-lay, overlay, B-film, B something. I don't know what it's called. But where I'm talking and then there's vision going across. B-roll, that's what it is. I'm looking for the word.
Okay.
So it's going to be documentary style. So I'm going to be offering that on my page as well. But at the moment, it's mostly the mentoring, the Reiki teaching, and healings. So I do a lot of healings. Really good for COVID, anyone who's been sick, respiratory stuff, and the kids with special needs as well. Really good for that.
What's you mentioned that you did pranic healing before?
Yeah,
what's pranic?
It's really good. I actually only came across it on the Sunshine Coast. I hadn't heard about it when I was on the Goldie. So whether it's more popular up here, I know in Brisbane they teach it as well, but it's a bit more in depth in terms of Reiki is endocrine system. So it's like hormones and glands and all of that. Very good for calming the nervous system. Pranic is actually more medically based. So I treat specific treatments for insomnia, specific treatments for cancer, heart attacks. We can help restore the heart tissue, blindness, deafness, all of that. So they're all very specific treatments for each of those things. And there's also treatment for adverse reactions from the vaccine as well. So we're actually doing a lot of that sort of stuff. Anyone with like pains in their armpits, some people are getting like stiff shoulders and things. So there's actually treatments around those things as well that my teachers very cleverly come up with. But it is more medically based. So I've got about 15 different books, very big books. And there's treatments for every single thing you can imagine. And the insomnia is amazing. Like it's a really incredible treatment where I've got people saying to me, I haven't slept in, a long time and I was taking tablets and everything like that. And all of a sudden they're sleeping, and I do recommend the phones and everything else as part of that. But, it's working with the healer. So it is teamwork. They do have to do some other things. But generally speaking, a few treatments with this insomnia thing, and it's like it just changes their life. Reiki is not that specific, you know what I mean? So I work with pranic and I'm like, what specifically do you need? Anxiety, depression. I've got really great treatments for depression as well, which is so effective. And I get really good feedback, about that. So generally I'll use both. If someone's here face-to-face, I'll generally use the Reiki to sort of drop them out. So I'll take them elsewhere so that they come out and they go to sleep. And then I'm in there doing it. Because as soon as I go to sleep, that's when all the healing's happening. Yeah. So I'm like, drop them out. Boom, we're gone. All right, let's do this thing. Let's clear it all out. So it's awesome. And it has changed a lot during COVID. There's treatments I'm doing now are different to what I was doing before. So we're all sort of adapting and trying to, keep up with everything.
Oh, that's really fascinating. I never knew that it was such specific. I mean, I do an energy-based sort of Reiki style healing.
It's amazing.
I mean, there's so many modalities out there with really specific uses.
That's it. Yeah.
But you do your own sort of freestyle, wouldn't you?
Well, I was just going to say that. Yeah. I mean, I teach Reiki in a very specific way. But that's Brooke. But then I say to people, just ad lib and just intuit and just feel, into the body, because it's more about the feeling than anything. So absolutely. Pranic though, we can't move too far away from it, you know what I mean? Because it is like, if it's a specific thing that they want to do, we're pretty much doing that specific thing. However, if people come in and they go, I really don't know, I just need a healing, then I am intuiting, because I'm like, okay, well, I'll tidy up this chakra, tidy up that chakra, work on this, work on that. And then I might find something, and it's weird because sometimes I'm like, oh man, my rib, what's going on with my rib? And they're like, oh, I like broke it 3 years ago. And I'm like, oh, well, it feels like there's still some stuff going on. Gastric banding is interesting because a lot of people who have any kind of surgery in that gastric area, I still feel all the scar tissue. So that really shows up for me very strongly. So I can work with reducing the scar tissue as well, or helping the blood flow better, blood flow in the body. I do a lot of energy work with kids. So kids who haven't grown tall enough or they've got a bit of stunted growth, you work on the basic chakra, the base of the spine, put a bit of energy up there. That can actually increase someone's height as a child, and also give them a big energy boost. So people are really tired. I work through the basic chakra with pranic energy healing and sort of give them a real boost. And people can notice it within seconds. Like I'll be talking to them. What are you feeling like now? What are you feeling like now? And asking them in the minute, and it's changing. Their energy levels are getting bigger and bigger. So I do talk sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes during the reading or healing. I want to know, is this making a difference? Can you feel anything? That's really important. So it's very, very quick, really quick.
That sounds fascinating. I'll have to look more into that.
It's amazing.
So people that are just starting to do healing or in spiritual, have you got any advice that you could, if you had to go back and as you started off, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would say loosen up, because a lot of the time I'm a perfectionist and I like everything to be perfect. And one of the things that is very crippling, Brooke, is perfectionism. So with me being a journalist and me being a newsreader, that was a very controlling thing where I could control that environment. I was doing this thing. Getting into this was terrifying because I was anticipating. So I used to come in and I'd anticipate. I'd be like, oh, especially with readings, oh, what are they going to ask and all that, and what's going to come up if it was a healing, what's going to come up, what am I going to find? And you can't anticipate this stuff because it's like you just have to be present and in the moment, and you just have to do it. What I want to say to the listeners and the viewers is that, with healing, it's really important to remember that we heal ourselves, we heal everyone else. So sometimes I feel rubbish. Sometimes I go into a healing and I'm like, oh God, I'm anxious or something, and I'll come in and I'll do it. And I protect, making sure I'm not passing on my energy. But I go in and I do it. And then by the end of it, I can't remember what I was whinging about. I can't remember what it was because we heal ourselves, we heal everyone else. So as long as we're doing it, and honest to God, someone actually said this to me a while ago. They're like, Michelle, if you stop healing, you're not going to be as healthy as you are, because I'm 45 and I feel like I'm doing really, really well physically. And they're like, you're not going to be as healthy as you are because I'm keeping my channel clear. So I'm constantly, just doing it. And that's what I want to say to the viewers is that the more you do it, you're using the left side of your body, the feminine, the spiritual side of the body. And that's, keeping you in the flow. So as soon as I lose any sort of, if I feel like I don't have a great connection or whatever it is, I go into a healing and I feel like it just cleans out all my channels and it's like a fresh start, like a blank canvas. So that would be my recommendation. Most people just don't do it. Most people they do the studies and then they don't follow through. So just start is what I want to say. Esther and Jerry Hicks. Esther and Jerry Hicks have a card deck, ask and it is given. And there's a little guy in a boat in the middle of nowhere. And it says, just start. Wherever you are, just start. There's a little person in the boat in the middle of the ocean. And I love that because it means that it doesn't matter. Don't leave it for 5 years. Just do it now. What does it matter? Let's do it now.
Well, tomorrow never comes, so that's probably good advice.
That's it. I love you throwing in those movie lines. I love it.
What?
It's throwing in your movie lines.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap things up?
Oh, look, I guess I want to say to people is, the fear, really watching, getting into the fear and the stories and stuff like that, with what we're going through at the moment. I just feel like what we want to do is send a lot of love, send love into our communities, practice loving kindness, the loving kindness meditation, which is a little Buddhist, sending love to yourself, your friends, your enemies, and the whole universe. It's like, what's really important at the moment is for all of us to really have that collective consciousness because that's really powerful. So if we're all tapping into, that source energy, if we're all sort of sending that out to our little suburbs, our neighbors, all of that, that's where we come out through this a lot easier, because I just don't want people to feel like, everything is fear, Source energy is the most powerful thing. So what I want to leave you with is for people to remember that when I'm in fear, I come back to love. I always come back to love, come back to your breath. At the very least, bring yourself back that way. But that's super important because we just need to be able to raise. We need to be able to get through this and raise. and for everything to get back to what we call normal. So thinking about that in the moment, not getting caught up in the stories, social media, stuff like that. It's really easy to do that. It's a bit of a wormhole, you know. So that's my recommendation for everyone who's watching, is come back to love. Source energy is everything.
Absolutely. Great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you need. You make the smile. I mean, because people don't realize that when you focus on you focus on the bad stuff.
Getting the same.
Yeah, and you're attracting that vibration. So
law of attraction. It's powerful. Lots of laughter. Lots of laughter, everyone. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And I'll catch you after the show.
Amazing.
And thanks everyone for watching us. Thank you, Michelle Price, again, and we'll catch everyone next week. As soon as I can find the outro. Okay. Thank you. See you, everyone. Bye.
Ciao.